Parabat, dek, dek, dek. Kata parabat. King.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Quick check. I hope that my voice is audible to everyone. Good afternoon from Bandung, Indonesia. My name is Stanley Sharizal. This is a delightful time for me to lead you to our amazing event. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before I got started, please allow me to greet all of you here. We have three amazing panelists here with us. We also have more than 30 parallel speaker or parallel session speaker, and we also have more than 300 registered participants. So welcome everybody to very first Class Creative International Teaching Conference, integrating teaching, learning, and assessment in EFL classes, Saturday, 14 January 2023. My name is Dennis Sharizal. This is such a delightful time for me to lead you through all the events. So before we jump up to a very interesting topic that we're going to discuss this amazing afternoon, please allow me to say hi to first Randy. Hello. Yeah, Randy is one of our panel speaker. And we also have Ibu Isti. Hello, Ibu Isti. And we also have Ibu Kori, right? This is Ibu Kori from Indonesia, but now not in Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's very nice to have all girls power here in this afternoon. I think, yeah, it's very interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you see from the various flyers and information that have been acknowledged and introduced by Class Creative, in this event, we're gonna have three remarkable speakers. Ibu Kori from the University of Leeds, and Ibu Isti from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, and Randy, I hope I'm not pronounced the name of the school, is Langhaugen Upper Secondary School from Norway. Right, so it's an honor for me personally to be with all amazing women. And in this time, we're gonna have interesting talk in relation to our education, especially how to integrate teaching, learning, and assessment in EFL classes. I believe that these three elements are very crucial, are very important to build an interesting and an engaging classroom activity. So before we got started, please allow me to share you a several information that in this session, we're going to have three important panel sessions. First will be delivered by Ibu Kori. The second one will be delivered by Ibu Isti, and the third will be delivered by Randy. So after the panel session's over, is not the end of this event, but we're going to move to the parallel session, which is going to start in 3:30, right? So we also have an amazing 8 breakout rooms that are going to share an interesting finding on their studies or research. Well, ladies and gentlemen, so as we know that this an amazing event is held by one of the community in Indonesia named Komunitas Pendidik Kelas Kreatif Indonesia. And to get more understanding or to know more about what is Kelas Kreatif, now here already with us, the founder of Kelas Kreatif Indonesia, and also will introduce you what is Kelas Kreatif, what we've been doing, what is actually our purpose in maintaining this interesting personal community. So without further ado, I would like to invite, well, actually Pak Dadan doesn't really like to call us a dedengkot, so let's just call it as the founder of the Kelas Kreatif Indonesia. So Pak Dadan, the microphone screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Patrice. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to Randy. So it's so happy to have you here. I think after calculating the time, basically we are going to have 3.5 hours until we finish all the session from the plenary until the parallel session this afternoon. So everyone, good afternoon. My name is Dadan, one of the team management members of Kelas Kreatif Indonesia. Please allow me to introduce what Kelas Kreatif is. Okay, I will share screen. Okay, can you see the screen, Patrice? Yes, okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. So this is Kelas Kreatif Indonesia's event. This is the second one. We have done the same last year. And but of course, we have improved in terms of the numbers of the speakers. If before, I believe we have around 8 breakout rooms. Now we have 8 breakout rooms, and we have around 18 recorded sessions. So later we will share all the recording to you through our WhatsApp groups, so you can like watch all the session and not miss any of the interesting session led by the presenters and the moderator. Please allow me to introduce Komunitas Pendidik Kelas Kreatif Indonesia. So Kelas Kreatif Indonesia is a personal learning network, is a group of colleagues, mentors and professionals that you connect with to enhance your learning and take charge of your own professional development. It's a global online community that allows you to tap into a broad wealth of knowledge and focus on what you consider most important to your learning. PLNs are especially valuable as new information and ideas are changing the world at a much faster pace than ever before. So, Ibu Bapak, Kelas Kreatif is not a new community. It was developed or built in 2008 with the name Education Development Project. Later changed its name into Kelas Kreatif in 2018, and finally, we have named Komunitas Pendidik Kelas Kreatif Indonesia in 2022 up to this time. And what are the benefits of personal learning network? I believe there are lots of benefits for us to stay together in the community. Number one is opportunities to directly improve teaching and learning. And the second one is build networking. I think this is good opportunity for us to connect and then to see the possibility for us to do, like, let's say, research together, or maybe getting information about research, etc. And then about the writing project, opportunities to lead the workshop like what we have today. So all of the 26 presenters are coming from the learning partners in Kelas Kreatif Indonesia. And as I mentioned in the registration form, I also invite all of the educators who are in the WhatsApp group right now to lead a session for 2023. And the next one is for professional connection. Ibu Bapak, can you help me? Yeah, thank you. And then keep updated because by having all of us in the groups, it's easy for us to share information, like the latest information from the government example, and can directly share to the WhatsApp group, so we can like have directly access the information. Yeah, new research, emerging technology tools for teaching, etc. And then reflect on ideas. And then the next one, of course, develop lifelong learning. Learning partners. So the learning partners, the learning partners in Class Creative Indonesia, because we don't have membership system up to this time. So the learning partners in Class Creative Indonesia, we have teachers, lecturers, tutors, university students, and Ministry of Education staff, not only in Indonesia, not only in provinces in Indonesia, but also some countries as well. Because we have, let's say, the university student, whether they are Indonesian, but they are like living abroad right now, and they are part of Class Creative Indonesia. And then what do we do in PLN? Collaboration, share ideas, resources, and learning materials with other educators. And then we have done so many webinars and other activities as well to develop your professional competencies. And then this is the data that we have in 2000 at the end of 2023. We have around 6,659 learning partners in Class Creative Indonesia. And then in 2023, we have led 60 webinars, including competition, on-site workshop as well. And then we have offered also around 12 FGD, focus group discussion on the implementation of Curriculum Merdeka, and we collaborate with other institutions as well. And then we have around 18 organizations and communities that have worked together with us in 2023. Oops. So Ibu Bapak, this is the leadership and management team of Class Creative Indonesia. It's a big group. We have 26 inspiring educators, teachers, tutor, lecturers who are like helping in facilitating and leading and organizing the events in Class Creative Indonesia. So they are the names. And then what happened next? So we have several activities on in our plan. The nearest one, I believe, is FGD Curriculum Merdeka in Practice 13, which is next Friday at 7 p.m. And then we have public speaking for educators, because for us, the teacher is not only about like the content. We also need to learn about how to deliver the content. And then teaching stories from the world 4. I think Randy part of the speakers as well. And then English teaching webinars and Class Creative podcast. And the last one, we have books in the box, which we collect the books, and we are going to distribute to the rural areas, to the school in the rural areas of Indonesia. I think that's the introduction, Patrice. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the session today.
Well, thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much, Dedan, for the amazing introductions. As well as we know from the introductions, there's an important highlights that we have here, that Class Creative always wish to have a great connections, can learn together, share information, collaborate, inspire each other, and empower each other. So I think there is the 6 core elements that Komunitas Pendidikan Kreatif Indonesia trying to issue in every event. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, so after the introductions, we are not going to have another introductions, and we also are not going to have a special performance, because we already have 3 special performance from our panelists or the speakers in this panel session. So without further ado, let's jump up to the panel sessions of Class Creative International Teaching Conference 2023, Integrating Teaching, Learning, and Assessment in EFL classes. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first panelist, we're going to have, I believe this is an amazing teachers, also an amazing lecturers, Ibu Kori. Hello, Ibu Kori.
Hello.
Hello, it's
me?
very nice to meet you, Ibu.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, everyone.
All right, so before we proceeded to the first panel, please allow me to inform you several informations. First, there will be 25 minutes long for the presentation. And after that, there will be 10 minutes for the Q&A. So to all participants, if you want to deliver questions, you may drop the question in the chat box. Later on, I will try to read the questions and deliver it to Ibu Kori. Right? So, and before continue, please allow me to read a bio note.
Tris, you are muted. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm muted, Emma. All right. So where did I left? So okay. So yeah, please allow me to read a short bio notes from Ibu Kori. So Ibu Kori is an English teacher and also English lecturer with a CELTA certification, and she has a 9+ years of experience in English teaching, both informal and informal institutions. She grants her Master of Art in EFL and Applied Linguistics from Iowa State University with specializations in computer-assisted language teaching or CALL. And she's a PhD candidate in the School of Education, University of Leeds. That's very amazing. So now where you're based on, right, Ibu?
Yes.
All right. So working experience. She has worked as an English lecturer at Institut Teknologi Nasional Bandung, and she also a BIPA instructor in Indonesian Embassy in London, and she also worked as an head of international office of Institut Teknologi Nasional Bandung, English teacher at BLCI Bandung, English teacher at the British Institute Bandung, and also the English teacher at Exclusive English Program or EEP, and English First Cirebon. So that was a very amazing experiences we're going to have with Ibu Kori. So without further ado, Ibu Kori, the microphone and the screen is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I'd like to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Ibu.
Okay, thank you. So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm still a bit sleepy actually. So yeah, this is my, I think, second time being invited in Kelas Kreatif event. So thank you very much, Pak Dadan and Kelas Kreatif for having me in another meeting. And also thank you everyone for attending this meeting today. So in this opportunity, I'd like to share with you about teachers' immediacy in face-to-face and online language classrooms. Wait, okay. So when I trying to find the topic for today's event, actually, I was challenged because we had tons interesting topics to talk about, right, in our field. But then I came up with this topic, and so you might be wondering why this topic. Well, actually, this is related to what I'm currently doing now. I'm doing a research investigating the students' motivation in using English during online instruction. And while I'm digging into my data, I found something interesting and something outstanding that I shared it with my supervisor. And my supervisor said, well, I think it's something that teachers must do, right? But I think like we as teachers, sometimes we need a bit reminder about this particular topic, this particular area. And I think this is something that worth sharing. And that's why I came up with this topic. So what I found in my data is that the level of my students' motivation to use English in the online class, it was affected by the experiences that they got from their previous educational level. For example, one student, he thought that English was really hard. When he was in junior high school, he thought English was really hard and he wouldn't be able to speak English. But then he met a friendly teacher, that's what he said, that changed his perspective. He met him in senior high school and he thought, he changed his belief that English wasn't that hard. And I think I can speak English like my teacher, something like that. Another example is that one of the students, she received insults when trying to use English in the class, like well, I think it's kind of common in Indonesian like English language setting, right? English language classroom. Like some students think like, you know, you soan ngomong bahasa Inggris sih, gaya-gayaan sih, so Inggris sih, something like that. So she was discouraged in the second year of junior high school. She stopped trying to speak in English. She didn't want to try it again because she was embarrassed and she was hurt actually. And in the third year of junior high school, she met a kind teacher who saw this issue and who put more encouragement on her, who gave like a lot of trust on her. So she gained more confidence to try to use English and learn English. And she wanted to gain more opportunities or to get more opportunities to use English by joining competitions, joining English club, and so on. And then another student met a teacher in elementary school who engaged him. Like he used to interact with him in English, and he thought that the teacher was fun and the conversation was fun. So English is fun. When I asked him like, "What do you mean by fun?" I said, you know, like joking or and stuff. So those three are from the students who have higher level of motivation to use English. And one student with a very low motivation to use English, she had a very high anxiety level when it comes to English. So when she heard English, she's like anxious. And she didn't mention it, but I think that's because she never had an inspiring English teacher during her previous educational level experience. So what she said is that all the teachers that I had, they never talked to me. They never interacted with me in the classroom. They only talked to the students sitting at the row front, the front row. And she, my student, she used to sit like in the middle or in the back row of the classroom. So she never had that kind of experience. And this is what I think like, teachers immediacy is very important and is very impactful. So what is teachers immediacy? This is the starting point of immediacy itself from Mehrabian in the field of communication. So he defined immediacy as behaviors that enhance closeness to and nonverbal interaction with another. And in the classroom setting, Anderson 1978, she defined teachers' immediacy as the use of various nonverbal behaviors like eye gaze, smiles, nods, and so on to enhance psychological and physical closeness with their students. Going forward to the current one, this is from Dickinson. He defined or described the concept of teacher immediacy as a range of verbal and nonverbal behaviors, not only behaviors, but also strategies that the teachers employ to establish a sense of closeness and proximity with learners. So this is the immediacy concept. And when I look into the literature, that immediacy is also known, or at least similar, but it's the same as social presence in the concept of community of inquiry model. So this is teachers immediacy. And how important is teacher immediacy that I found in the literature? The first one is that the teacher immediacy increase students' perception of teacher credibility, and it also increase students' affective and cognitive learning, increase perceived learning and satisfaction, increase students' motivation, the field where I'm studying right now, and also increase students' willingness to communicate. Of course, this is the area that I'm currently investigating. And disclaimer, so the effect of teachers immediacy can be directly or indirectly. Now, what are the behaviors that we can see or we can identify in the face-to-face classroom? This is based on Lee 2019. So from the verbal behaviors, the first thing we can see if the teacher has or displayed immediacy when he or she uses gestures while talking to the classroom, or smiling while talking to the class, moving around the classroom while teaching, not only standing before the class. And then having a very relaxed body position while talking to the class and looking at the class while talking. This is the nonverbal behaviors. And for the verbal behaviors, there are a lot here. The first one is using a variety of vocal expressions when talking to the class. So it's not like flat, dull intonation. And then using personal examples or talks about experiences that she or he had outside the class. And then asking students that solicit their point of view or opinions, getting into discussion based on something a student brings up, even when this doesn't seem to be a part of his or her lecture. More on the verbal behaviors, getting into conversation with individual students before or after class, inviting students to meet with him or her outside the class if they have questions or want to discuss something. So they are kind of give more time for the students to approach them. And then praising students' work, actions, or comments. And this is also something interesting, like using humor in class. Okay, so those are the behaviors in the face-to-face classroom. Now, how about the online classroom, the teachers immediacy in online classroom? They have, like slightly different environments. So for the indicators of teachers' immediacy in online classroom, there are a lot of studies doing kind of like, to me, the same thing. So they're trying to make like checklist behaviors, and they have different wording. So I think it is better for us to understand the foundation of those behaviors. So what we are looking for in our own behaviors in the class. So most studies conduct content analysis to identify the behaviors. And I think this is, something that we can do for ourselves also when we are teaching in the classroom. And they are looking at three components here. The first one is affective components, which is personal expressions of emotion, feelings, beliefs, and values. And then interactive component, which is the evidence that we are attending, and cohesive components, which is building and sustaining a sense of group commitment. So there are these are the characteristics of the verbal behaviors that are similar, actually the same with the face-to-face classroom for the verbal behaviors. And these are again the the characteristic, or the indicators of the verbal behaviors related to affection. And sorry, I just go through that. I will set the PowerPoint later on, because it's regarding time. And there are some examples of how the indicators can be displayed in our classroom. And these are also the indicators of the interactive component, and also the examples here, and the cohesion, and also the examples here. And for the nonverbal cues for teachers immediacy, Stewell 2018, he just give like frameworks, or framework of analysis regarding the behaviors itself. So this is what I found in my data that I use MacArthur's current framework, the 2022, that these behaviors displayed in the online classroom apparently give a sense of immediacy. So the eye contact itself, like for example, if I look at my other screen, like I have two screen here, but if I look at the other screen, it seems like I'm not attending, right? And then silence, like giving more wait time to the students, also actually have a sense of immediacy, like giving a sense that the teacher is patient enough to wait. And then also using the emojis and gestures for back channeling. Sorry, I have this on the talking head stage, like what we have now, that we show our upper body part, that's the talking head, that's what they said. And then the using of the background, Zoom background and Zoom filters, smiles, of course, and then multimodal communication, like using the chat and the audio video, that's also giving a sense of immediacy, gesture for sure, and then postural relaxation. So, like those, we are trying not to be really rigid and stiff like that. And that gives a sense of immediacy, and also minimizing distraction from the surrounding, like having or using headset. It's giving more, a sense of that teacher's immediacy itself. And I'm sorry if I speak too fast, but yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. So in my time is 24 minutes. I'm sorry, Patrida, I speak really fast.
No problem, Ibu. That was very interesting. I believe there was a lot of discussions and questions that we may brought to the floor. So yeah, very interesting when we talk about the online setting. Yeah, sometimes we lost our connections with our students, and I think that this teacher immediacy can be part of the element that we can consider as teachers when we are do online teaching, so that our engagement are still there in the classroom. So this is very interesting. So as I announced before, if anyone here, participant, wish to deliver questions, you may drop the questions in the chat box. So I was trying to help you to read the questions for Ibu Kori. Well, now, Ibu Kori, we have one question actually from one of the participants. It's from Pak Gunawanti Ramdhani. The question is about, can you share how to motivate the student to learn English? Because many students afraid to say and practice, although we as a teacher give them a creative teaching models. So maybe you can share some suggestions on this issue. That's the question, Sibu.
Okay, thank you very much. When it comes to motivation, the factors affecting motivation, it's really not like there's one single answer. It's not that simple to answer that question. So
Yeah.
it's very complicated, and there are a lot of interacting factors affecting the students' motivations. So if we, regarding the factors, so we can relate. Probably this is what I was going to say, that the things that we can do as teachers to motivate our students. So the first thing is that because it's really complex, I don't know where to start. But if I can break down the bigger factors first, like the students, the personal factors first, their personality, for example, and then the second one is the environment of the class, and then the teachers, us, and the pedagogical strategies that we employ. So there are a lot, right? And what we can do as teachers, to me, as a starting point, is we employ this immediacy. So how we approach the students, being kind, being friendly, being like giving kind of what is it? I wouldn't say that zero anxiety classroom, but we can say that we minimize anxiety level in the classroom, by giving them more authorities, like giving them the power to share their knowledge. So the knowledge is not from us, but giving them a sense that they also have that power to share knowledge. So like digging information, personal information from them. So basically, that's the very, what is that called? Foundation. So my supervisor is the expert in motivation, if you know, Martin Lamb. And yeah, we start with this when we do the intervention for my classroom, for my research. The first thing to do is that giving the students more authorities, so they are less anxious, and when they are less anxious, then they would at least try. So I think that's my answer.
All right, Ibu Kori. So thank you very much. So I think that is very interesting point. We provide an opportunities, we be nice we're being kind, we're being involved in the moment of our students learning. I think that's going to be a very important option to build their motivations in learning. Yeah, because sometimes our students are afraid, right? They're feeling like, oh, I think my English was not good. My friend will mock me or something. Yeah, I think that's what we can lose. But we have to delete this in our classroom. So it's very interesting.
And too many critics as well. Well, sometimes
Yeah.
we as teachers, like especially English teachers, we what we call gatal because we want to criticize
Yeah.
every single grammatical mistakes that the students make, and that's not it's like reducing the teacher's immediacy itself.
I see. So we need to just hold, yeah, listen and
Yes,
hold this,
yes.
just wait, and everything's calm, and then later we just discuss what can be corrected. Probably, yeah, and
Yes,
some sort of
yes.
update. All right. So another question has come from Ibu Feni Resita from Bengkalis, Riau. Questions is how to create a mediacy for face-to-face class for the basic student level that don't have many vocabularies or kind of expression to speak English. What we can do to encourage the students, and most of the basic level students just silence in the classrooms. So there's the question. Okay.
Yeah. So another factor affecting the students' motivation to use English is also their level of English proficiency. So they are silent because they don't have the tool. They don't know what to speak or they don't know what to say, right? But we want them to try. Okay. So there are a lot of strategies here, and if we relate it to the teacher's immediacy, we might comes with the again immediacy is not only like going to the content that we deliver to the students, right? It's also about our psychological approach. So first, again, giving them the less anxious classroom environment. For example, like breaking them into smaller group and what is it? Like giving them more wait time to prepare and to learn this one. So if it comes to the nonverbal, again, we try to be, makes the class environment very relaxed and fun, maybe. And these are the way I think this is a very important point that we ask students to share their own opinions and share their own, again, giving them more authority to have the knowledge, to share their knowledge with the classroom, so they know that they have that power, and giving them more wait time, and also put them in a smaller groups. I think that helps. Again, there's no like one single answer to answer all our pedagogical problems. There are a lot of things that we can see from different perspectives.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more on that, because we need to see it in various ways. Our students are unique, our environments, our society are very unique. So the one answer probably good for one case, but the other one probably not good. So it's very interesting, Ibu Kori. So we also have another questions from, I think, Pak Michael Jensen's can directly state the questions. Can you unmute yourself, Pak?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, hello, sir. Where are you from, sir?
From Bandung, sir.
From Bandung. Okay, so you may give a questions to Ibu Kori.
All right. Should I call Miss Kori or Mrs.?
Whichever you're convenient.
All right then. Okay, I'm really sorry that this is about immediacy, right? Yeah. Actually, I don't understand really about immediacy here means. Is it about firstly come to class or what?
Firstly come to class, or you mean like being punctual?
Yeah, the meaning of immediacy here itself.
Okay, so immediacy is basically our behaviors, both verbal or non-verbal, that we use to minimize the gap, the psychological gap between us teachers and the students. So, for example, like if you are aware that in the formal and informal English setting, in the formal context, the students are expected to call ibu bapak, right, to the teachers, but in the informal context, they call the teachers by name, like in here. Like in here, I mean in a higher level. So that's actually one way to employ teachers immediacy. Only one way, like calling the students by name as well, like like calling them directly. Like for example, in here there are a lot of people, and I want to say, "Hi, Michael, how are you today?" So that's how I try to minimize the gap between you and me, right? And that's immediacy. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, I think we will have the same problem. I'm also trapped on the literal meaning of immediacy. I thought it was related to time constraint, but then it's really interesting when we talk about a psychological approach to our students. So that's very interesting. Maybe I will still open the questions. If there anyone want to give a questions, you may raise your hand, please. You may raise your hand if you have questions and you want to. Pak Darul Ahmad from SMKN 1, where I just
Okay.
Yeah, right. So Pak, please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Bukori. Yeah. I would like to ask you and also to consult my problems when dealing with my big class. You know, we have very big class. We are teaching big class, and each class comprises of 36 students. So it more than 30 students. We are teaching every day. And the problem is that the students' motivation is different. So some of them are very high in learning English, but some of them who cannot speak up in English, who are lacking of vocabulary, that they just keep silent. So actually, I have tried to motivate them. I have tried to influence their mind that please just judge English as a simple language. English is pretty easy. So just plan in your mind that English is easy. Don't think that English is hard. No, I have tried to influence their mind. I have tried to walk around the classroom in order to apply the non-verbal behavior also. But yeah, they are just keep smiling at us whenever we are talking to them in English. So they are just keep smiling. Why are you just smiling at me? Because I don't know what you are saying, sir. I don't know what you're speaking. You're speaking English, so I don't know because I'm Indonesian. I speak Javanese every day here, so that's the problem. So, and the problem also, these students try to provoke others to stay in their group, to stay in their community in order to dislike English, because hey, you're Javanese, you are non-native speakers. Why you like English? Why you have to speak in English? So this is the problem.
Wow, there was a weird communities, yeah. Communities,
yeah,
English. All right.
This kind of students try to provoke others to not to love English.
Very interesting questions.
Yes.
Dado, thank you very much. Ibu Kori.
Yeah, so this actually is the typical Indonesian English, right, classroom. So many of our students try to discourage others not to use English by insulting them, just like what happened to one of my students. And that's kind of challenging for us as teachers because we don't want to be like very strict to, hey, don't do that, like being galak, So yeah, that's kind of challenging. But to me, the first thing that what I learned from my students, from my the students in my research, the first thing is that they the power, the drive, the force that they had when they want, like they have the motivation to learn English, is when they realize that English is useful, not only important but useful. So when they play the game, like the online games, they listen to songs, they what is that, watch YouTube, and then they realize that, oh, English is important, English is useful, and I think I will need that. So that's the first thing. Maybe we all teachers as us, like we also want to show them that, yeah, English is useful and important in our way. So not only by saying that, but we also give like activities to show that, oh, English is useful. That's the first thing. The second one is I forgot to mention about multimodal communication use. So some students are verbal, they like to speak and they want to speak, but some students are nonverbal, they are shy, and some nonverbal students might not want to be verbal because they don't have the tools, they don't have the vocabulary and stuff. So as teachers, we might want to try using the multimodal communications, like, okay, they don't want to speak, but how about writing, how about like talking in a smaller circle, and online posting some posts online. So I think that's also another way, another strategy that we can employ.
All right, very interesting, Ibu Kori. So how far we understand our students can be an important element to choose an appropriate strategy for us in an English classroom. So yeah, it's very interesting. So another question, Ibu Kori. So I hope you're okay with that. We have a question from Pak Sandi Maulana. Right, the question is regarding immediacy behavior in face-to-face class for verbal communication. Which one is better, to use 100% English or just use their mother tongue?
Okay, so because immediacy is basically the strategy to reduce psychological gap, right? So it really depends on the level of the students. Well, yeah. So in a higher the students with higher level of English, of course, it's important to us to use like 100% English. But in a classroom with mixed levels, or even worse, like with the students with higher lower level of English, it will just give more anxiety to them when we use 100% English. So like in our teaching, we don't only teach, right? We also assess our students' needs and our students' levels. So when we design our plan, our teaching plan, then we need to remember about that. So if we want to, for the students to use English, but they have very low level of English, again, we need to think of like different ways. And one of them is giving, like, for example, a task, like the designing the task that will require them to use English in what is that, capacity of their English level, like that. So the answer would be, everything would be, it depends.
All right. So thank you very much, Ibu Kori, for the interesting answer. So yeah, that's very new to me, actually. The terminology is really new to me. So teacher immediacy, and I can wait to learn more further about this because I found it very useful to bridge our psychological communications to our students. So there's a lot of questions there, but unfortunately the times. So hopefully we can meet again in further discussion, Ibu Kori. So thank you very much for your sharing. Good luck for all the research, and see you in the next time. Ladies and gentlemen, Ibu Kori. Thank you, Ibu
Thank you very
Kori.
much. I hope it's useful, and let's be an influential teachers for our students. Thank Thank you.
Thank you very
I
much.
leave the share screen and
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, so I would like to inform you that now we're going to move to the second panel session. But before that, I will also would like to give you a gentle reminder that in this session, we're also going to have 25 minutes, and there will be a Q&A later after the presentation. And then if you have questions, you may drop questions in the chat box. So later I will try to help you read the questions. And before that, also, please allow me to inform you that if there is any of you wish to have a certificate, we offer you a certificate. Later, we're going to share you the link if any one of you want to have a certificate. And as you know, this Class Creative is a non-profit community. So the money that you use for registering on certificate, we'll use for our upcoming project, such as Book in the Box, or providing books, storybooks for many schools in the Indonesia, all around Indonesia. So yeah, if you wish to have that certificate later, we're going to share you the link, and the link will be opened until 15 January or on Sunday, 11th at noon. So please, if anyone want to have certificate, you may directly fill up the link. So we're going to share it later with the link. So ladies and gentlemen, so the next sessions, we're going to have, I already heard the names quite most of the time. My friends already told me about Ibu Isti quite a lot of the time. So finally, it's an honor for me to meet, even though I'm online. I'm so happy to meet you. Hello, Ibu Isti.
Hello, Patrice. Thank you for having me today.
An honor for us, Ibu. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I got started, please allow me to read the bio notes from Ibu Isti. So, Ibu Isti currently working as a lecturer at Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Her background of education, she was graduated from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia for her bachelor degree, and for master and doctoral, she graduated from Monash University, Australia. And then the subject that she teach in UPI is writing in professional context, writing in academic purposes, exploring poetry. Oh, it must be a very romantic wife, yeah. Yeah. And then intercultural communications, also research project in linguistics and literature, and research interest in literacy education, identity, and English language pedagogy, cultures and literatures, and also academic writing. Ibu Isti also has published various publications, and one of which is about lokalitas dan globalitas dalam sebuah perjalanan pemahaman konsep diri, penelitian berbasis cerita dalam I Maliha and Friends edition, Perempuan Menulis, Bandung UPI Press, and some other writing. So we're going to learn a lot of things today from Ibu Isti. So Ibu Isti, the microphone and screen all yours.
Thank you very much, Patrice, for the introduction. So hello, everyone. Thanks once again for being here, spending the weekend on this conference. That's what a way to spend your weekend. You're very productive. Let me just share the screen first. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Is it?
Ya Allah, di sendal saya lupa di sini.
Okay.
Yeah, it's showing.
Yeah, it's showing. All right, good. So now I think my talk is going to build on what Ibu Kori has said earlier about teachers' immediacy. While she talks a lot about the conceptual framework and the theories behind teachers' immediacy, I'm going to take you through a journey of poetry reading. So it's more about the practical aspects of how to build that closeness to students. Yeah, being a student and a lecturer of English language and literature at UPI, I've developed a particular passion for poetry reading. So I'm going to influence and somehow hopefully make an influence on you, realizing that actually, I think all this time in EFL classes, poetry, the use of poetry has been underrated, if I may say. Yeah, but actually there are lots of potentials that you can do with poetry reading in the EFL classroom. All right, so the title of my presentation today is going to be Building Empathy and Creativity Through Poetry. All right, so Patrice, I'm going to ask you to help because to help the counting, because I'm going to do a quick survey. So how many of you here are actually, you have already incorporated poetry reading, poetry writing in your EFL classroom? Okay, 1 minute.
All right. So is anyone here ever used poetry in your classroom activity? You may vote yourself in the chat box, please. I will write my name because I've used once.
All right, so that's one.
Okay, so
Now let's see.
2, Ibu Fanya, Ibu Arnila, 3, Pak Fian, Pak Hendrian. Oh, never before, but Pak Ivan, yes. So 4 for now.
Okay.
All right. Poetry. If someone asked poetry, poetry teaching.
That breaks my heart.
Me, yeah, once or twice say never, but I'll try. I use song.
Okay.
Right. So not yet. Says all right. I said I don't think so. That very seldom. Says very seldom. All right. So it means once or twice. Yeah. Never. It's difficult to understand when you say someone.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's not true.
That's not true. Okay.
I'm going to persuade you that it can be easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Angie very confident say yes.
Okay. So that's good. All right. But so I was right when I said at the beginning that poetry has been underrated in the EFL classroom, right?
Yeah,
so hopefully you will reconsider the use of poetry once you finish hearing my sharing with you. Okay, hopefully. Okay. So what's on the menu today? So I'm going to try to persuade you why we need poetry in the EFL classroom. Why poems? Why do I need to incorporate poems? Okay. And what can be learned, not just for students, but also for us teachers? What can we learn through poetry reading and writing in the EFL classroom? And lastly, I'll deal with the assessment. How do I assess poetry in my classroom? Yeah, what should the rubric consist of? Yeah, so I'll briefly talk about that. Okay, so imagine this situation. I have often been in this kind of situation, especially during Zoom meetings, yeah, where I feel that as a teacher, I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to the screen. There are students attending the class, like somewhere out there. But when you're trying to ask them questions, get response from them, silence. Now, I think that sounds very familiar to many of you if you are teachers teaching during the pandemic. Okay, so one way to engage students to actually talk, I find, is through giving them poems. Now let's read the poem together. What has happened to Lulu? What has happened to Lulu, mother? What has happened to Lou? There's nothing in her bed but an old rag doll, and by its side a shoe. Why is her window wide, mother? The curtain flapping free, and only a circle on the dusty shelf where her money box used to be. And why do you turn your head, mother? And why do teardrops fall? And why do you crumple that note on the fire and say it's nothing at all? I woke to voices late last night. I heard an engine roar. Why do you tell me the things I heard were a dream and nothing more? I heard somebody cry, mother, in anger or in pain. But now I ask you why, mother. You say it was a gust of rain. Why do you wonder about as though you don't know what to do? What has happened to Lulu, mother? What has happened to Lou? Now, if you read this to your students, there must be some responses from them. I'm sure. Yeah. So there are quite a lot of things you can ask from them. Yeah. So for example, what actually happened? What happened? Yeah. And you need to look at the text once again. So what happened? And then you try, your students will, attempt to kind of construct the meanings from the poems, and kind of maybe try to guess what happened to Lulu. And whose voice are we listening to in this poem? That's also something to discuss. Yeah. So is it a sibling? When you say it's sibling, is it the brother? Is it a sister? Is it a younger brother? And is it a younger sister? Yeah. Patrice, can you guess? I'm going to point at you. So whose voice do you think?
It's your voice, but in this, I think that will be a brother or sister. That probably.
Okay. There are lots of gap fillings here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I like poetry because it's usually much shorter to read and relatively easier than longer narrative text. Yeah. So you will need to be doing some choosing to actually try to fit which text is more suitable for your students, obviously. Yeah. But I think you can, students can have an idea of what is happening in the poem. So, you try to dig their thoughts, their assumptions, and that itself, whose voice, the question of whose voice, that can open up, a heated discussion. Like, I think this is younger sister. I think this is a younger brother. Well, this is where your prior knowledge will come in the meaning making process. Yeah. So having 3 children, I have a son and 2 daughters. I can say that the nature of daughters they're more curious. They ask lots of questions. Whereas being a son, I have a son, and he just really don't care. Not he doesn't care much about what's happening in the house. So somebody who's asking lots of questions, it sounds to me that this might be a younger sister. I don't know if you agree with me. Now, this is the good thing about poetry. There is no right or wrong. All you need to do is refer to the text to find the proof. Yeah. Or if there is no explicit proof, you can have a smart guess, like what I said earlier. In the house, who do a lot of questioning and asking? Probably daughters. Well, your prior knowledge will come into the interpretation. Okay, so lots of questions. And so that's why I like to engage students with poems, because it can raise lots of discussion. So there are at least 3 levels that you can look at when you have a poem. First of all, you can look at the language. Okay, so for example, you look at the vocabulary. What does ragdoll mean? What is gust of wind like? What kind of movement is gust of wind? Yeah. So for example, or question concerning the language. For example, how the poem is written. Lots of repetition. What happened to Lulu? What happened to Lulu? What kind of effect does it create? So you can look at that level, the language level, yeah, and have discussion with your students. And then you have another level, and that's the content. What is actually happening in the poem? What happened to Lulu? Has Lulu run away? What has she written that made the mother crumple the note? Okay, and this can be a task on its own. Like, you ask the students to imagine the letter that Lulu wrote. Okay, that's something else. Okay, so that's producing a text. So looking at the content, kind of predicting what happened, meaning making. And then I think this is where the advantage and the benefit, the powerful tool of having poems in the EFL classroom is the connection that you can make between the words on the poem and the world. How is this experience that that poem is bringing up, is raising, related to your own life, to the student's own life? Like, you can ask the question, have you ever had an argument with your parents, with your mother? What are they usually about? Okay, and how did you solve the problem? You know, so there is this very strong connection. You need to be making relations to your own experiences. And this is where the student actually explore their own selves, their own surroundings, okay? And then we as teachers, we can make some kind of, we can bring up certain values. For example, in our religion, is it okay to argue verbally with your mom? Is it okay? Is it acceptable to run away, you know, from your family? So you can come in and lecture, so to say, without actually doing, you know, proper lecturing, but you bring up those values into context because you have the text there. Yeah. So I find it really beneficial. Now, you know, when you talk, especially like myself talking to university students, they don't want to hear you lecturing them what to do, right? But through these kind of texts, we can share our knowledge and our experiences together and create that safe space that Ibu Kori was talking about earlier. Okay, so let me just emphasize once more. Poetry can be motivating and encouraging students to talk about their opinions and feelings, and you know, and being safe in talking about it. Okay, so it has general educational values, raising moral and ethical concerns, like the case of, is it okay to run away? Is it okay to argue with your mom, you know, and make her cry, you know? Poetry also encourages students to read in an active and reflective manner, enhancing their critical reading and critical thinking and interpretive abilities. Yeah, you can't just read like as if you try to find information, skim and scan. It doesn't work that way. You need to be active and reflective. Have I ever experienced this? Okay, so for example, just answering what happened to Lulu, you need to be active and look for clues in the text to answer what happened to Lulu. Yeah, and then you reflect. Is it okay to, you know, to run away from your family? Yeah, so that's active and reflective reading. And so, for example, if you want to follow that reading with some other assignment, for example, you can ask students to write a responding poem from the perspective of the mother, for example, or from the perspective of Lulu, for example. Or you can try to imagine what that letter was all about that made the mother cry. So in this way, you also help students to understand other points of views. And this is where your empathy comes in, the building of empathy. Okay, so giving students poems in the EFL classroom, it's not just about sharpening students' linguistic and cognitive skills, but also empathic skills. Okay, and this helps them to understand the human conditions, to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And that's, I think, is really important. Yeah, empathy is created through the development of critical thinking skills. So empathy is part of being critical. Having empathy is part of being critical. When students are taught to read carefully, analyze different perspectives, and ask questions, empathy is the result. And these skills honed in a classroom will carry over to students' personal lives. And I think we will all agree that to succeed in this life, it's not just about being smart, having, you know, high IQ, but also that affective dimension it matters a lot, right? In building relationship with others, being successful in your workplace, you need to have that empathy. And so this is a long life skill that you're building in your students. And so this is one of the assignments I gave to my student. So on Zoom meetings, they're usually very quiet. If I really don't push them, they usually just stay silent. But sometimes, a lot of times actually, I was taken aback by what they have written. So the assignment at that time was, for them to write their feelings about online learning. Okay, and the title 7 a.m. death really, I don't know, I was just so impressed with the way my student write this. Okay, so let's read again. 7 a.m. death. I died this morning. I died as the screen was loading, as the meeting was finally starting, as the uninvited inner demon started devouring. I died this morning. I died as I rot from the monotonous circle, as my focus starts fading, as I realize the only hope I have is miracle. I died this morning. I died as your voice became distorted, as the face of my classmates melted, as I realized I have no control of anything. I died this morning. I died as I fear that I miss everything, as I weep about my grades dropping, as I realize I have 12 assignments missing. I died this morning. I died as my tears ran dry because I missed the due time. I died as my soul eroded due to inner chaos over time. I died as I lost myself, my grades, and my everything. I died this morning. The inner demons have won and began destroying me further. That is why I seem to you and the class like a goner. That's why I died this morning. That is why I seem dead to you. Wow. So, this student, she was not particularly active, on Zoom, but this is an eye-opener for me, understanding and interpreting the meaning of silence on Zoom. So silence on Zoom can be interpreted in so many ways. Yeah. For example, it's not just always about boredom. It's not just about you being boring as teacher, but sometimes it's about the students' inner struggle to voice their opinion because they are scared, they're not confident, they're afraid of being judged, so they're afraid of being unheard, for example. So this in itself gives me some kind of insights into the kind of struggles my students are going through on Zoom meetings. So the empathy is two ways. It's not just about students, developing their empathy, but also us as teachers, we become more empathetic to what the students are going through. And that's part of teachers' immediacy, isn't it? Right. Yeah. So I think that is very important to understand what the students are going through so that you can build a safer classroom environment. Yeah. So this is another, I only have 5 more minutes, is it?
Yes, 5 minutes.
Okay, so that journey, I don't know, journey of poetry reading probably needs to stop soon. But for example, I'm giving students assignments about haiku. We talk about haiku 575 syllables. Itu dari sudut pandang from the perspective of language, but then the content and the revelation that we get as teachers when reading these haikus strikes me. For example, I realized that even university students, they have lots of insecurities. They need lots of self-love, and I was just, I'm dumbfounded by this because I thought they would be, they would know who they are by now, so that's something that I found. Yeah. So yeah. So also I gave students, with poetry, you don't give a final examination in the sense of, trying to recall what is metaphor, what is simile. It's nothing like that. It's project based. And I find it more, more enjoyable to read. Yeah. So for example, let me just share with you. So this is, they needed to respond to a text, yeah, about teaching from the teacher's perspective. Okay, that teachers spend a lot of time designing, what you call it, designing lesson plans, preparing the materials, but that's from the teacher's perspective. What about the student's perspective? And then they write their own response. And it's posted on Padlet, yeah, and other students can read and comment. So it's, and it's so interesting, and I'm just surprised at the level of writing that they're able to show on the poems, regardless of them being quiet in the classroom. Okay, so that's something that I find very interesting. And also, let's see, yeah, so maybe I'll just, so this was the poem that they had to respond to. Yeah, did I miss anything? Question frequently asked by students, and this is from the perspective of the teacher. And then that was the one I showed previously was for the third semester students. So they only had to respond and then choose an image that they think is appropriate. Whereas for seventh semester student, I challenge them to write and create a video, okay, and write their own poem. So let me just.
I was in the 3rd grade. A boy in my class raised his middle finger to my teacher. I didn't understand what it means, but I knew it was rude. When I saw my teacher frowned and her face turned red, a simple question appeared in my mind. What are we? At that time,
Sorry.
I thought that maybe we were all just caterpillars.
Can you hear the voice?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
loud and
yeah.
clear.
Sorry.
Yes, the class was our cocoon, that someday we would walk out of it and become butterflies. But I was wrong.
I think there is something problem.
I was in the 7th grade. During the break, a girl in my class made some impressions of my teacher, who couldn't pronounce the sound R.
I cannot hear the voice of the presenter.
They call it mockery. And in the middle of that fun, the same question appeared in my mind again. What are we? At that time, I thought that maybe we were all just little birds, that the class was our nest, we fell from it sometimes, that someday we would learn how to fly. But I was wrong again. I was in the 11th grade. Some of my classmates were sleeping during the class. Some were eating during the class. Some were playing phones. Some were talking and making noises. While my teacher was pointing at the whiteboard, teaching algebra. I knew he was tired, but I could see a smile on his face, and in the middle of that chaos, my mind screamed loudly in silence. What are we? When are we going to reach that last stage of our metamorphosis? When are we going to have wings? Will we ever be flying or forever stuck in this form? What are we? Are we going to get lost in this maze because sometimes we don't listen to those who could show us the way? I am in college now. Last week we had a presentation. 26 out of 40 were not present. The same question appeared in my mind again. What are we? Are we only bodies with no hearts? Or do we have one, but don't know how to use it?
Okay, so that's an A grader. As you can guess, that was really, really good. I was just really surprised by her ability. And again, she was one of a quiet student, you know, but she was able to create that. Amazing. So straight A. Now, if you look at this Bloom's taxonomy, yeah, being able to create, to produce something, that's like the highest attainment of cognitive skill. So you can imagine the students are being engaged in all kinds of skills that engage them, you know, cognitively, affectively, and behaviorally. Yeah. So to close my presentation, so this is the main reference for me in assessing their poetry writing. There's the idea, okay, organization and cohesiveness, poetic elements, voice, yeah, convention. Now, if you notice, the grammar, spelling, punctuation, the basics are always there. You cannot write a good poem if you don't have good grammar. Yeah. So yeah, so that's the basis. Yeah. All right. So I'll close my presentation with this quote: literary text helps students to reflect on the world around them, opening horizons of possibility, allowing them to question, interpret, connect, and explore. And that's why poetry is a very powerful tool to incorporate in the EFL classroom. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Istio. That was very amazing, you know. I just enjoy with the wavy sounds. It's very interesting, the melodies. That's very interesting. If your student saying instead of 7 a.m. of death, I probably say this is my 2 p.m. of life, yeah? Because this is a very interesting we have here. So it's very amazing. So I think we have questions, but yeah, probably one or two because for time constraint. So first questions, Ibu, is from Pak Dahdul Ahmad. It's an extremely inspiring learning content, Ibu. I promise to implement poetry as one of the learning source for my students. But is it not time consuming applying this to our classes? If we only have 2 hours for each meeting, what should we do to incorporate this this powerful material to our limited meeting?
Right. So time limitation is always our problem, isn't it? Right. But for me personally, you know, with poems, you need to have that enjoyment. So you don't do it in a hurry. So, you know, when at the beginning of the semester, I showed my students my syllabus. So I have, for example, several meetings for just one topic. For example, building empathy, shifting perspective, that can be 3 meetings on its own. So I don't know how it is at school, but I guess, you know, you can do, you know, the project-based and ask them to create poems later on and allocate longer period of time, but definitely poetry reading, I mean, you don't need to finish in one session, you know what I mean? So you can have a topic and carry that topic for a couple of sessions. I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know how it is at the school context, but I'm speaking from the university context where, you know, teachers have more freedom, I think, to create the slots, teaching slots for themselves. So I don't know, I'm sorry about
those are interesting. Yeah, project based will be one of the options, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes to read and then make poetry at the end. So that's very interesting. I think the last one with the video is very good. That's very good.
And that's done within two week session. So it's not
Oh, that was amazing. Right. So it probably another questions we have here. New insight about poetry from me, Ibu. Do you have any ideas about integrating the poetry into several what we so-called as academic subject in the university level? So-called, yeah. So there's the questions. Do you have any idea about integrating the poetry into several so-called academic subjects in university level? Thank you.
Yes, I see that as being problematic when you see literature as being not very academic, because actually, if we can refer back to some of the examples I showed you earlier, you learn a lot of skills with poetry reading and writing. You remember things, you recall certain incidents from the poem, for example. You can, show skills of relating, skills of interpreting, critical thinking and critical reading skills. So I think it's time to redefine what is academic. We need a reconciliation of the term, because being academic does not mean that you cannot be reflective, you cannot relate to your own context. I think it's important that in your academic work, you have a voice, and that voice comes within you, your stance, your perspective of the world. Yeah. So I disagree when people say you need to be academic, you need to avoid or restrain saying the pronoun I, for example. Well, it all depends. When you write for a persuasive text, you cannot not say I argue that, for example. It's hard. So yeah, I kind of disagree with the notion of being academic in that context, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So
yes. Very interesting. Very interesting. Academic doesn't mean stiff, right? Academic means open to any possibilities, I think. All right. So Ibu Isti, thank you very much. There's a lot of questions, but we're sure we're going to have another time to discuss this further in another event. So thank you very much for the sharing.
Thank you.
It was very interesting how we can integrate this romantic side of poetries to our classrooms activity. So thank you very much. It was very interesting and an honor to have you, Ibu Isti. Thank you very much, Ibu. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, before we continue to our last panel sessions, I would like to remind you that if you wish to have a certificate, you may fill up the link that will be shared by our committee. The link will be open until Sunday on 15 January at 11 at noon. So please do fill the form if you wish to have the certificate for this international conference. So ladies and gentlemen, now let's move to our third panel sessions. From Indonesia, Ibu Isti, now we fly to Norway. We have Randy, I hope it's not mispronounced it, Hanshamar Oi Garden. Is that pronounced correctly?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Hello, Randy. It's morning there.
Yes, it's 8:30 this morning, so it's still dark outside. Yeah.
It's still dark. Okay.
Yes,
so
it is.
Thank you very much for make your time to be with us here. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to read a short information about Randy. So, she was a Norwegian history and English teacher. Her primary work interests are literature. So you must be enjoy listening to the poetry report. All right. The 20th century world history and international relation. One of the best thing about her job is to explore new topic with her students and engage them in discussion. For her, being a teacher is to make the student curious, opinionated, and participating world citizens. She was graduated from Bergen University and a coursework in the psychology, administrations, and leadership. And she was a teacher in Langhaugen Upper Secondary School until now. She's a teacher in English and history, educator for teacher students, contact teacher, subject and project work coordinator. She also ever worked as a teacher in the Bergen Cathedral School and also a teacher in Feelingsdalen Upper Secondary School. And she also has various working experience and courses, such as in 2022, Institute for Training and Development, and Amherst MA USA course studying in the US Academic Fulbright Scholarship, and also in the University of Cambridge UK course, the role of media in today's world, and the Norwegian Techie Association Activity Leader course, and the Red Cross Bergen volunteer teachers for immigrants learning Norwegian. So that was very interesting to have you here. So without further ado, Randy, the microphone, the screen is yours. Oh yeah, you also have 25 minutes of presentations and another time for the Q&A.
Yes, okay. Well, hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me back in this forum. Let me just show you my presentation, share my screen with you. Let's see. Here we are. Can you see my screen?
Yes, as in the map. Yes.
Yes, lovely. All right, so there we are. Okay, yes. So as was said here, I live in Bergen, which is in the northern part of Europe, and I work at this upper secondary school, which is a school of 650 students, and we have 30 students in each class, and I think that's about the same class sizes as in Indonesia. But in the school, we teach dance, we teach music, and we teach also have a study program called General Studies, which prepare students for university and higher education. My presentation today is a bit about what Corey talked about. It is actually inspired by a question that I got from one of the participants in one of the previous sessions, and it is something I find challenging in my classroom, and I think this is something that all English teachers find challenging, no matter if you teach English in Norway or if you do it in Indonesia or in Argentina, doesn't matter. But that is how to get students to speak English in the classroom. Because students are reserved, they are shy when it comes to speaking English. So this presentation is about how to make it less frightening. So as I said, Corey talked about it a bit earlier, so I'm sorry if I repeat something. But the problem is the silence. It depends, of course, but in general, in my classes of 30 students, there are 5 students that actually participate in my lessons that speak English, while the 25 others, they are silent. And when I ask them about this, they say that, oh, but it's embarrassing to speak English. They find it weird to speak English in the classroom when everyone speaks Norwegian. And they also think that, why do we have to do it? It's just easier to speak in their mother tongue, Norwegian in my case. So they just resort to that instead of actually trying to speak English. But they're also worried about saying something wrong. They don't know if they have the vocabulary, they worry about getting the grammar right or pronunciation. And also intonation. Oh, but I don't have an accent, I have a Norwegian accent, oh, I can't speak English then. So this is the problem, and this is something I work with in every single lesson, and I work very targeted with it. So I'd like to share some of my methods and some activities that I use in my classroom, and hopefully they can inspire you as well to promote students speaking English in the classroom. So let's just dive into this. I set the standard at the beginning of the year. I enter the classroom and present myself in English, and I rarely speak Norwegian in my classes. Sometimes the students don't know that I speak Norwegian, actually. I am a Norwegian speaker, that's my mother tongue, but I speak English from the very beginning, and they just to set a standard from the very first lesson. And if students don't understand what I say or anything like that, then I'm happy to repeat what I just said, or I can rephrase it, or I can actually, if they ask for it, I can explain it in Norwegian as well. But when I speak English all the time, after not too long, they actually start speaking English back to me as well. Especially, I do have to say, speak English, please, a couple of times. But it's very, teenagers are adaptable, so they start speaking English quite fast, actually. So I set the frame, and I have expectations to them. Second, I spent some time explaining the importance of speaking English. In Norway, as I understand from, it's the case in Indonesia as well, the teachers give them grades based on their classroom performance. Am I right? Yeah. So of course, to speak English is important for their grade. We assess them based on writing skills, on reading skills, on listening skills, and on speaking skills. So it's kind of like it's one of these fundamental skills they need. So it's important for their grade, but in that context, they need to practice. They need to practice regularly. And I always tell them that, okay, Messi, he's not the world's best football player because he played a lot of PlayStation. He practiced a lot to get where he is. So I chat to the students about the students. To become better, we must practice. And as humans, it is a part of life to feel slightly uncomfortable at times, but we must push ourselves to get out of that comfort zone. So, and I think it's important that they try. If they try, it doesn't matter if the grammar is wrong or if the pronunciation is slightly off. In the beginning, I just ignore that. The most important thing is just to get them to speak, and then we can get to those things later. Try, I tell them, and we'll work it out together. If they don't know the word, they can say it in Norwegian, and I will translate it to them. And that way, they actually speak English, and they also learn new words. Third, and most importantly, which both speakers talked about, is that I build their confidence, and I do that with activities. So to create a friendly classroom environment. If the students feel at home in the classroom, they are more likely to push themselves. So I spend a lot. I compliment the students a lot when they actually speak English, or when they ask a question. I say, "Oh, that's an interesting question. Oh, good, well done." I boost their confidence. If their grammar is slightly off, I just ignore that, especially in the beginning. That's okay. The most important thing at the level most of my students are at is just to get them to speak English and to actually communicate in English. So, but we spend a lot of time to get to know each other in order to make a friendly classroom. So I'd like to share some of my startup activities with you before I move on to talk about activities I do throughout the year. Because our school year starts in August. So when we return to school after the holidays, I always get a new class, and then I spend a lot of time doing just spoken activities to create this friendly classroom. So I do a lot of icebreaker activities, and one of the first things I do is that I introduce myself, and I talk about a bit about not personal things, but I say, okay, I like reading, and my favorite author is this and that. Just a bit of information, just so they actually get a sense of who I am. And then I ask my students to do the same. First in pairs, that they introduce themselves in pairs, and I often give them like, okay, you should say something about your hobbies, you should say who's your favorite author, what is your favorite film. So they do that in pairs first, and then I put them into groups, and then they can do it in the classroom and present themselves in front of the class. So I take it very step by step. I also sometimes ask them to, instead of introducing themselves, they have to introduce their classmates sitting next to you, because it's easier for them to introduce someone else, so it's not that personal. Then you kind of ease them into everything. We also do activities like this snakes and ladder game that you can see on your left-hand side here. This is a board game, very easy. You just print it and you bring some dice to class and you ask them, you gather students in groups and they play this game. Questions in this game, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like, it's a place I'd like to visit is, or they have to say, I'm currently listening to what kind of music. So very low key activities, but they have to speak English. And this is it's easy, but at the same time they have to give reasons. They do have to talk, and they have to talk about something they're interested in. And that often makes it easier for them. I also often ask them to do like mini presentations about something they like. It could be a presentation about their favorite football team, or it could be a presentation about their dog. But mini presentations about something they like is important because they get to know each other, so you establish a friendly classroom. But they kind of choose the level themselves. If they want to talk about something close to their heart, they probably have the vocabulary for it. If a student is interested in football, he probably watches a lot of football, so he has some sort of vocabulary for it, and so he can actually talk about it. So the idea here is that if they're comfortable in each other's company, they are more likely to try to speak English. So that is why I spend a couple of weeks just doing icebreaker activities at the beginning of the year. Easy ones, and then I slide them into the subject as well. And throughout the year, I rarely have a lesson without an oral activity. I usually start my lessons with a spoken activity because that it makes them active and sharpened from the very beginning. And this picture here is from one of my classes this week. It's a time discussion task activity. I post one-on-one question on the smartboard, and they have to discuss those questions in pairs. So they stand in two lines or in two rows, and they face each other. Then they're given a question, and they have to discuss that question for 1 minute. For 1 minute only. So I give them a timer. I set a time for them, so it's not it creates kind of like a competition or some kind of race. So they're very on it, and they know that, okay, it's just a minute, so we'll have to do as much out of it as possible. So that's one and that you can do with, you know, the subject or the topic you're talking about. I give them would you rather questions. Would you rather, would you rather eat Brussels sprouts for dinner for the rest of your life or black-eyed peas for the rest of your life? Easy questions like that, but that tend to engage the students so they actually speak English. If they in this activity as well, they stand in one row, and if they agree with the first thing mentioned, they step to the right. If they agree with the second option, they step to the left. And then they have to discuss with the people standing next to them. Why did you choose that? Why did you choose this? So it's also a fun activity that engages the students more than you'd think, actually, even if it sounds a bit silly, but it's a part of just getting them to speak. Something I call the conundrum. I give them they are given a conundrum. For example, what to bring to a deserted island. So they're given a suitcase and they can only bring 5 items. It's like a silly question as well, but these kind of things engage students because they have different opinions and they have to give reasons and arguments for their opinions, which is important. And finally, sometimes I give them what I call explain the picture. The students, they sit in pairs with their backs against each other. I give each student a picture like the 2 you see here. The first student has to describe the picture to the other student, and he or she has to draw it. So this is a task that requires that the students have to be as detailed as possible. They have to describe shapes, colors, things they see in the picture, and of course you can adapt this to the level of your students. And then afterwards they show the pictures to each other and how accurate is it, and they can also show to the class, and we can discuss and award a winner. Simple activities, but they all encourage students to speak English. It seems low-key, but you can build on these students and adapt them to the level, as I said. So these methods that I've already mentioned, we can use them when it comes to presenting more factual material as well, depending on what you work with. But when working with more topics in my subjects, like we talk about the USA, we talk about the UK, we talk about literature, then I use other spoken activities. One method I use quite a lot, and which these 4 students did this week, is the jigsaw presentation. Sorry about the spelling mistake there. Each student gets one topic, one text or one segment. For example, if we talk about British history, one student gets a text about the Industrial Revolution, one about the Victorian age, one about the first half of the 20th century, and a 4th student about modern Britain. And then they must read a text segment given, or they might have to research information about it. And then they have to present that to the other students. Again, my experience is that time is quite essential here as well. I tell them that you should present for 1 or 2 or 3 minutes, depending on their level. It shows the students that you set what's expected of them, and it also gives them something to reach for, work for. Because otherwise, often my students, even if they have the level, they tend to present for 15 seconds and they're done. So some time is of essence, but always in smaller groups. And I, as a teacher, I walk around the classroom, I move around in the classroom, listen to them. But it is easy for them to talk English when they work in groups. And I actually move desks and chairs around in my classroom and make little groups, like you can see here in the picture. So we also do a lot of debates, also in smaller groups, and sometimes actually quite often, I say that, okay, you have to argue for this side. It doesn't matter what you really think. You must argue for, say, why social media shouldn't be allowed for kids under the age of 16. It doesn't matter what your opinion really is. That is your opinion in this setting, and you have to give reasons for it. And the reason why I give them like an opinion is that they often find it embarrassing to actually say their own opinions. So it kind of just takes down that that bar for them, and then of course I open up for their real opinions afterwards. But that's a way of doing it. I use a lot of the game Alias in my class. I don't know if you know it, but games are always very popular, and so I give them, for example, words on cards, and they have to explain those words to their students in English. They're not allowed to point, they're not allowed to use Norwegian, but they have to use the language they have in order to explain the words. For example, if they describe the word orchard, they must say a garden where people grow fruits, and then their classmates have to guess, oh, that's orchards, that's the word. Finally, a more targeted activity is news presentations. Each week, students are asked to present the most important news from the last couple of days, and also give them a time limit, say 3 minutes, and they have to prepare and present news for a group or the class. And this is also an activity that I do regularly, because when something is done regularly, they know what's coming, they see that their classmates are doing it, and that makes it easier for them, and it actually contributes to speaking English in class. All right, I don't know how I'm doing on time here. Is it fairly all right?
We still have actually we still have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. So this was just like a speed through everything, but but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. But I think it's to include, this is from from my classroom. These are some of the activities I do in the classroom, and students, they are, of course, students are different. Some students are shy, some are really outgoing, and the success rate of these activities varies, obviously, but you can adapt activities to every class and to every level. So getting all students to speak English in the ESL classroom is a challenge for us teachers, and I would love to get some input from you guys. But I truly believe, and I see the fruits of my work, that if I work hard and consistently with this, it is something that students, they get used to it quite quickly, and they find it extremely rewarding and developing if they actually dare to take the necessary steps. You can actually see that a student, if she just says one sentence during a class, you can really see that she or he grows as a person, and that development is something that you can spot within a few weeks, or actually or a few months. And speaking English is I think it's one of the most necessary skills there is. That English in communication, they will, no matter what they'll do later in life, that is necessary. All right, so that was a crash course to how I work with promoting speaking skills in my classroom. So yeah. I'll stop my presentation.
Well, thank you very much. That was very practical. Yeah? You did a lot of things in the classrooms, right? So, and that's very interesting. So I highlight that the most important things is we can allow students to engage in the classrooms, and then they can brave themselves to speak in the classroom. So that's very interesting. Thank you very much, Randy. So now let's move on to discussions. Just quick check, am I clearly audible? Yes, okay, thank you. So we have questions from Ibu Yauma. What is the English level of the students in your class? How do you know if they are using English during the group activity?
Yes. English levels vary. They are generally quite good. They're at a B2 level, C1 level in the European framework. I don't know if that, do you know how that framework is? Do you know that? They know, they have, in Norway, kids start learning English at the age of 6. So they start upper secondary at the age of 16. So obviously they've had 10 years of English, but so they have a certain vocabulary. But we also have students that didn't start learning English until later in life. So it varies a lot, but generally quite the English level is quite well. I move around in the classroom. I move around all the time. And then I talk to the students, I engage in the conversations, and that's also because I want to create that friendly classroom environment. But then I listen in on the conversations, and I can use that in my assessment of them.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. So yeah, I think it's also similar cases here that we have a very English level, yes, and then as a teachers we need to able to adapt and facilitate all levels for our students. I agree with that, Randy. Thank you very much. And then now let's moving on to the second questions. I think we have someone raising their hands. Pak Sandi Maulana, you may give a direct questions to Randy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chris, for the opportunity. Is it clear?
Yes, loud and clear, Pak.
Okay, yeah, it was very interesting talking about Norway, yeah. And then I think at the very last minute, sorry, I forgot again. Miss Randy, Miss Randy talked about the students in Norway, which they are studying English for 16 years, and then they are really fluent in English. But I think it is quite opposite in our country, Miss, because, you know, like I was studying English in junior high school for 3 years. After that, I studied English in senior high school for 3 years. And I went to college, studied English for 4 years. And then, to be honest, I got nothing back then. And yeah, I could speak English because I went to work, and then I got the job. It was at EFL back then. And then I got some experiences, and then finally, because in my company, we must speak English, and then I got pushed by my, back then it was headmaster, and then yeah, I could speak English. To be honest, when I was in college, when I was as a student, I couldn't do anything. So my question is, what do you do differently in Norway at school? Is it always speaking based learning? Probably I can say, like, every day you speak, you use English every day. That one is the first question. And do you teach students grammar? Because I remember when I was at school, I will always analyze grammar every day. Every day I analyze grammar, and then I never use English. So why after 9 years I couldn't speak English fluently? That's the point. So my question is, what do you usually do, especially in Norway, as an English teacher, to make your students improve their English quickly? Okay, yeah, I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pak Sandy, for the question. So, Randy?
Yeah. First of all, as I said, they start learning English at the age of 6, so they're quite young when they start. But in the beginning, it's just they sing songs and have rhymes and stuff. So, but what we do is that we also we do teach them grammar. You do need grammar in order to speak English and to understand the language. I guess we're quite lucky because Norwegian and English have the same semantics and quite many similar words and so on. But we work targeted with grammar. Not very. Usually we read texts, we work with poetry, we listen to stuff, we watch things. So we work with these things in a varied way. But when it comes to grammar, we have, like, for example, I take 10 minutes at the end of the class and just focus only on grammar. Do little tasks. I give them some. I present something, and then they have to solve some tasks, or yeah. But I don't spend 90 minutes working with grammar. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah. Basically, probably like daily you what is that, like you talk in English with your students, and probably you make English as their language as well, because yeah, to be honest, sometimes, yeah, probably this is my experience, maybe others are different. Based on my experience, so the teacher sometimes speak in Bahasa Indonesia and then they explain about grammar. That's the point. And probably in your country, when you teach English, you use English 100% and everything in English. Is it right? Thank you.
No, when I teach grammar, I try to explain it in English, but it's it's better to do it in Norwegian. So I do it. Yeah, I do. Try in English, but then I often do it both in English and in Norwegian. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pa Sandy. I think that the most important thing is we are open possibility for our students to access language, right? Their English, so they can still learning English. They can produce it and they can understand it as well. One last question from Ibu Astuti. Very quick questions, Ibu.
Hello, good afternoon, madam.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Dwi from Molucas, Tanimbar. It's the east part of Indonesia, and well, I'm so sorry because I'm outside right now, but even though not full, but some questions that I want to ask you, because I am an English teacher at a vocational school. Well, the students in my school, English is something is a very hard lesson to study, just like math. I just want to know what is the strategies for me as an English teacher, first to push them to give spirit, because what their knowledge about English since from elementary, also from junior high school, well, in a lower, very low. So it sounds that we have to teach them start from the basic, even though I think they're in the middle level actually. So we just make them grow like that. But even though just like we ask about what's your name, how old are you, they haven't understand yet. So just something just like innovative and fun systems or strategies for them, how as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Dwi.
Okay.
Randy, quick answer for this.
Quick answer. I think games or something like that is an easy way of doing it, like the snakes and ladder game I showed you, or that they can actually talk about something they are interested in. because that is something when I like a present, all the activities I've mentioned, you can make them very, very basic. They can talk about, they can say that, okay, my cat is black and white, his name is John, I don't know, but so it's, but talk about something they're interested in is important. And of course we as teachers should challenge them with things they don't think they're interested in as well, because they often get interested in things. But start, try to engage them with things they as teenagers are interested in, and also talk about the importance. Why do they need English? Because in this global world we live in Norway, as in Indonesia, tourism is quite big. So many of them might have to use English, you know, in work. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Randy. Thank you very much, Ibu Dwi. So I believe that everyone here will ask questions. This is very nice discussions here. There's a different cultures, different students capacity. So there's probably create a new ways of thinking, and we need to consider what's good or bad for our students. Well, that was very interesting session with Randy. Randy, thank you very much for the presentation, for the insight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, so before I close, so let me wrap the whole presentations by saying that in classrooms, our role as a teachers is quite challenging. However, we need to not only focus on developing the students' cognitive, but also need to create more friendly atmosphere, attaching to other psychological entities to our students to make them more fun in learning. One of which the way to do is through immediacy or teacher immediacies. We also can collaborate with poetry and also some other fun and engaging activity that what Randy already talked to us before. So that's very interesting. So this is the end of the panel sessions, but it's not the end of the international conference, because after this, we're going to have 8 parallel sessions in 8 breakout rooms. I'm going to announce about this later. But before that, so let's do a photo session. I would like to invite all participants to on your camera. Turn on your camera so we can have a nice family pictures, right, for this international conference. Right, so they will be on my count. We have 8. So hold the smile for the 8 slides. So let's start in 1, 2, 3. That was the first slide. Let's move on to the second. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Third one. 1, 2, 3. All right. The fourth one. Sorry, there's someone messaging me. Okay, there. This is off cam. Most of them. So I will just do a quick photo. No counting because there's no one there. No one on camera. Okay, so that's all pictures. I believe I'm going to share the pictures later in the group. Well, ladies and gentlemen, another quick reminder: if you wish to have the certificate, you can fill out the form that we already have, and then we're going to share it later to you in the chat box. And then the link will be opened until tomorrow, 15 January at 11 noon. So on the chat, there is some information related to the parallel session. We have a room 1 with the delving into student stories and learning English by using chat box. Room 2 using learning journals to promote learning autonomy, boon or burden. And room 3 stimulating students' thinking and speaking skill through elicitation technique. Room 4 we have listening to student voices in ER class. And room 5, we have activating and developing students' prior knowledge through KWL strategy and literacy-based learning. And room 6, we have using based descriptors approach to teach IELTS academic writing. Ooh, IELTS, interesting. Room 7, we have reflective practice as a tool for teachers to improve innovative English language teaching. And the last room 8, we have a differentiated instruction in teaching description text, right? So next information is the information about the speakers and the moderators. So you may choose any rooms that you are interested in. After I close this session, you can directly move to the breakout room. And another information is you not need to return to this main room because the because the panel session will be over right before the panel, before the parallel sessions started. So I think this is going to be the final remarks for me. Thank you very much for Ibu Kori, for Ibu Isti, for Randy, for such an insightful presentation for us. New side of teachings, new inspiration for teachings for all of us as a teachers, right? So again, thank you very much. And also thank you very much to all participants. It's such a pleasure for us, Class Creative Indonesia, to be part of together learning process, ladies and gentlemen. So this is going to be the last word for me. Thank you very much and see you in the 3rd Class Creative International Conference in 2024. I'm Tustani Sharijal, signing out. See you in the breakout rooms.
Thank you, Pak Tris. Sorry, thank you, Randy. Thank you, Bu Isti. Thank you, Bu Kori. So the breakout rooms has been open. Everyone, you can join the room. We have 8 rooms. Presenters and moderators, you can join the room as well. And please inform us if you need help, so we can put you in the room, yeah? Okay, the room is filling up. We have plenty in room 1, room 2, room 3.
I'm sorry, Pak Dadan. Ina,
Yes.
actually, I have chosen the breakout room that I would like to visit, but I actually forgot which room that I should go into.
Just any room that you want to, Bu, for now.
Any room will be
Yes.
okay. Any room will
The room
do.
will be
Thank
fine.
you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And Ibu Bapak, if you need help to join the room, can you rename your Zoom account? So like room 1, so I can put you in room 1 rather than chat me one by one. It's gonna be
Can
hectic.
you put me in room 4, Pak Dadan?
Yes, Wati. You are the presenter, right? Let me find your name. Patrice, if you can help me as well.
Sure, Pak
Dadan,
Dadan,
I am in one room. I cannot find the room.
Oh, okay, as Pak Dadan said, Bapak Ibu, if you wish to go to particular room, can you please rename yourself with room 1 and your name, so we can simply add you to the room. Thank you.
Would you please rename your Zoom account so it will be easier for me?
Room 2, Pak Dadan.
Rename the Zoom account, please.
Punya saya udah diganti belum bisa juga, so I cannot join.
We'll do soon.
I've already rename my.
Okay, let me check. Pak
Dadan.
Yes.
Oh iya, nanti coba gunakan.
Room 8, please, Pak Dadang.
Ibu Rina, right?
Yes.
Excuse me, Pak Dadan, I need your help.
Yeah, we have Pak Dadan and Patrice. So.
And Patrice.
Okay, Bu Wia.
Yeah.
Room.
Room 3. Room 3.
Room 3.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ibu. I cannot find your name, Bu. Yeah.
Sorry, Pak Dadan. Why there's all breakout rooms will close in 51 seconds?
I think one of the hosts closed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by accident, probably. Okay, I need to reopen again.
Okay.
Punten, apakah saya sudah jadi co-host?
Okay, I will
Saya
make it.
gabung Pak Dadan. Tadi terputus tiba-tiba.
Yeah, it's okay, Bu. I think we will come back to the main room and rearrange again the room.
Okay. So gentle reminder, Bapak Ibu, if you want to go to particular room, can you please rename yourself, like room in the front before your name. So for example, room 2, Wia, for example, or room 3, Annie, for example. So the room numbers is in the front of the name. So it's make us easier. Yeah, please put the name of the room in the front. Hi, welcome back, Bapak Ibu. Yeah, there was some issues. So we're gonna reassign you to the room very quickly. So just be patient. And then if you need a help or assistance to add you to a particular room, please rename yourself, room numbers in the front of your name, so we can simply assign you to a particular room that you wish to. But if you're able to assign yourself, you also can assign yourself.
Okay. I'm sorry. I have changed room 3.
Yeah,
Sure,
it's
sure,
okay.
Ibu.
You can choose by yourself, yeah, for the room, Ibu Bapak.
I'm sorry, Pak Dadan. I can see. I was accidentally moved to the main room.
Yeah, I think there is a technical issue. Might be one of the co-hosts close the room.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, everyone, you
I
can
just
come
go
back to the just go back to
Okay,
the
thank you.
breakout room.
Iki level loh.
I can see the brick room.
Bu Annie,
Would you
wait,
like-
I will trying to assign you, Ibu. Wait.
Okay, thank you.
Sharizal, Bu Isma, please, room 7.
Sure, Ibu, wait.
Yeah.
Would you put me to room 7, please?
Bapak Ibu, don't forget, after we assign, there is an approval on your screen. You need to click the approval so like you can just go to the room. If you not click the approval, you will not go to the room. So, thank you. Pak Dadan, sorry, can you find Ibu Jenny's name? I cannot find Bu Jenny's name, so I cannot put
I cannot find either. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
very
cannot
strange.
find it. Yeah, that's really strange, yeah. Also, Bu Rindika, I think. Also very hard to find the names. Yeah, Bu Rindika is actually already assigned to room number 5, but not joining yet. So let me move to the main room. Bu Rindika, can you make up approval on your screen? Also, Bu Marjeni, I think you already assigned, but somehow it's not pop up on your screen maybe because you already assigned to the room 7.
Yeah, in room 7, but I automatically move back to the main room.
Yeah, Bu Jenny, you are in room 7 already, yeah? You just click the invitation.
Or maybe Bu Jenny, if you have a problem, you may leave and rejoin the main room. You may leave the room first. Yeah, you may leave this Zoom first and then rejoin, so we can reassign you. Bu Rindika, I think the same case with Ibu Marjeni. I think you need to leave the room first until you rejoin because we already invite you, but I think there's some technical issue, so there's no button for you to click. So you may leave this main room first and then you can rejoin so we can assign you. Thank you, Ibu Rindika, and I'm really sorry for the inconvenience.